Hello, this is designed to be a relatively brief video just laying out some of the aspects of our course on hip hop at City College. If you're not enrolled in this course, this will be an extremely boring video. It's just going over some of the assignments and kind of guiding you through the syllabus in case it's not already perfectly clear to you. So if you're not in the course, I would suggest watching just about anything else. Let's take a look at the syllabus. And you can see that we'll have our Zoom meetings on Tuesday and Thursday from 11 to 12:15. But that's a discussion section only. It's not designed for me to lecture to you. The lecture materials are all going to be online. You can see the course objectives. Basically, we're exploring the history of hip hop from the earliest formations of the genre in the 70s until the current moment, and therefore we'll have four primary areas of emphasis. First, although we'll be interested in other elements of hip hop culture, including dancing, graffiti, and literature, our primary focus will be on the music, the DJ, MC, and production techniques that go into producing hip hop tracks and albums. Second, we'll emphasize the development of business and promotional aspects of hip-hop. It's become a major business venture for recording studios, record labels, fashion venues, films, literature, etc., and has had a huge impact on both black and white business models in the U.S., and we'll talk quite a bit about that. Third, we will devote a large portion of our time to developing technologies surrounding hip-hop, including turntables, drum machines, MPCs, and so on. And fourth and finally, we'll explore the cultural and political impact hip-hop's had on the representations of blackness, political views of violence and equity, and constructions of gender, race, and authenticity. And you can read the sort of departmental learning guide outcomes that are supposed to be part of syllabi on your own. Here you can see the course requirements, right? This is set up to be a scaffolded set of requirements so that you start with just writing a few sentences about a track and then a paragraph about a different track, and then you start building up your term paper, right? The paper that's sort of the cumulative result of your work outside of those first two writing assignments. So you'll create an outline for that where you'll tell me what you want to write about. Basically, you'll pick any track from the history of hip-hop that I don't discuss in the class, preferably by an artist I don't get around to discussing, but if that's not viable, that's fine. But you'll talk about some track that I don't discuss, and you'll create an outline that lays out what that paper will look like. Then you'll give me one of the descriptive paragraphs, or you could do several. It's up to you. A historical paragraph or several, and then eventually the opening paragraph. And then the term paper will consist of revisions of those things, because I'll be marking them up as we go along. We'll take a closer look at that at the end of this video. There will be 4 quizzes, and I dropped the lowest scoring quiz. All the quizzes will be conducted via the Blackboard site, so if you're not familiar with that site, get familiar with it. They are all timed quizzes, and they're all multiple choice, so relatively straightforward quizzes. Obviously open book, you can use your notes, but they are timed, right? You'll have I believe I'm providing 14 minutes for you to do a 10 question with 1 extra credit question quiz, so it should be ample time. There's a midterm for 60 points, final exam for 60 points, and then participation 30 points, so 10% of the grade. Notice that participation's a real thing, right? I don't care. You don't have to come to every session of our discussion sessions. I won't be taking attendance, but I do expect you to participate, to have ideas, to have opinions, to talk about them, and I will make a marking in my grade book accordingly. So the more you participate, the higher that grade will be, and it is a real 10%. So if you never talk, you get a 0 for that, and you don't want that. That drops you quite a bit. This is a 0 textbook course, so everything that you need will be provided to you via links or PDFs or documents on the Blackboard site. So you'll have outlines that are already on the Blackboard site for every single lecture. There's a PowerPoint lecture where I basically go through those outlines and add some things, and there's slides, of course, and those are already on the CUNY OneDrive, so you should already have access to those, and we'll talk more about those in a moment. And then there are podcast episodes that you'll hear via Spotify or Anchor or whatever that I've created. You can read the stuff about it being online and all the things that entails on your own. We won't go over that right now. You might go to my website at www.chadwickjenkins.com, and that'll have some materials, but all that material will also be on Spotify for the podcasts and on Blackboard and so on. The podcast is called Sound Philosophy, and there will be several episodes that don't pertain to this class, but there will be several that do, and I will have those listed in the syllabus. And then if I prepare new ones over the course of the semester, I'll let you know about that. I already mentioned the PowerPoint presentations, and we'll talk about those in greater detail in a moment. And then the listening for each session is listed. We'll take a look at an example of that for a moment. I've already talked about participation. I do not, let's emphasize this, I do not provide students with extra credit assignments, right? You have to keep up with the work. And then you can see the policies regarding the written assignments, 12-point font and all, Times New Roman and all that kind of good stuff. Telling me your computer crashed isn't an excuse for not turning in work. Make sure you back up your work. And I do remove 10% of the overall grade before I even start grading it for every day an assignment is late. So assignments have to be turned in on time. Here's the course calendar for the course, and you can see all those assignments that I had listed above. Those are all placed here on the course calendar. So you can see on February 2nd, that's coming up a week from today when I'm recording this, will be our first session, and then you have each of them listed there. So on our 5th session, that's when those descriptive sentences are due. At our 6th session, that's when the quiz will be there for you to take, and so on. Okay. You have the Zoom courtesy. Obviously, I'd like you to have your camera on. It's nice to see people. But, if you're going to eat or something, at least while you're eating, maybe turn off the camera. That would be good, I think. Obviously, mute your microphone unless you're currently talking. That way, New York City is a noisy place, right? So you can eliminate the amount of noise that the rest of us hear. The academic honesty policy integrity policy is cited there, and you can review that. For the most part, everything here you can use outside sources for this course. You just have to cite those sources. What you can't do, of course, is work on these papers together and share writing together. That is the most obvious form of an academic integrity problem that we might encounter in this class. The accessibility office, you have the link there to it if you need to be accommodated for anything. As you'll see, the midterms and the finals, those are things that you do outside of a timed issue. They're already available. You can start working on them now. So the timing, the length of time that you're given to complete assignments really shouldn't impact anyone with the way that I've set it up. I've set this course up to be what's termed an accessibility friendly course, meaning that the kinds of allowances that we would make for people who have accessibility concerns, I've made for everyone. So it shouldn't be. But if I'm wrong, if I have done something or haven't thought of something, you'll let me know. And you need to be in touch with the accessibility office if that's the case. The weekly assignments are for that session. So in other words, you do everything before we have our discussion session. And there will be at least a PowerPoint lecture for every session, and sometimes a small reading or something to watch online or a podcast episode. Right? SP and the number refers to the podcast episode, Sound Philosophy. And just, if I were you, I'd go to either Spotify or Anchor and just start following that podcast so that you can find the episodes you need. All the PowerPoint lectures can be found on the CUNY OneDrive, and as long as you belong to CCNY or any CUNY school, you should have access. And there's the link for that, and you just click on it in the syllabus, and you should get to it. You should download each lecture onto your computer to get the narration to play. Anyone who tries to do it from the CUNY OneDrive, they always tell me it doesn't work, right? One student said it did for him, and that's great, but assume it won't, right? If you're concerned about space, you can always delete the file later. You will have to sign on using your school credentials to get into the CUNY OneDrive. Once you're there, you can access the folder, find the lecture you need. They're all numbered, right? Unfortunately, for whatever reason, the way that they have the numbers there, let's see if this works so you can just see. So I'm already signed in, so it goes right to it. And you can see that for whatever reason, it doesn't line up the way you would expect it. So it goes from HH1 to HH10, but they're all here. So there you see HH1, HH10, 11, 12, 13, There isn't anything for 14 because that's when our midterm is, 15, 16, and so on. And then you see 2, and then they put in 20 through 28 for whatever reason. 28 isn't uploaded yet, but it will be. I'm going to try to finish that today. And then back to 3. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt, but you can find what you need. You'll then... let's get back to this. You'll then download that, right? So you go to File. So let's see here. Let's guide you through this really quickly. So once you access the folder, find the link you need, or the one you need. Let's say you need 25. Just click on it. It'll open slowly. Go to File. And then you can download as, right? And you just download the file to your computer. It'll ask you where you want to put it. Put it on your desktop for now, or wherever you want it. If you want to have a folder set aside for it, whatever you like. And then you should, at that point, be able to go to the slideshow. So let's do that really quickly. So obviously, I have them all downloaded. So I open one. I go to slideshow. See the list of things here. So I'm going to go to slideshow, click on slideshow, and play from start. Or if you want to start from a specific slide, you can start from a specific slide. So we can play from start. Welcome to the first session of hip hop. And you hear my voice and so on. Let's say that you don't get through all of it. You only got through the first 7 slides and you want to start at slide 8. No problem. You just highlight slide 8 and click play from current slide. So much so that and it goes right there, right? So you'll hear my not always so lovely voice, and that'll be that lecture. So let's take a look at the schedule of classes. So for the first session, the one that when we first meet on February 2nd, I expect you to have looked at the lecture materials for that. So you see that for each session, I tell you what it is. So the first one is an intro, approaches to hip hop. And then there are always 3 topics. I like 3s, right? That sort of summarize what we're trying to cover in each session. So Black expression in the 1970s. We'll talk a bit about Black Power, Blaxploitation films. This is all in the lecture, obviously. Black TV, the South Bronx, and so on. We'll talk about the 5 elements, and then a brief history of graffiti. You'll listen to and look at the PowerPoint lecture that we just looked at a bit there as my sample, and then you'll listen to the Sound Philosophy podcast episode number 24, where I talk about graffiti. And in this case, I've even given you a link. I won't always do that, but I've given you a link. If you have time, watch this video here, The Fire Next Door, which was a news report with Bill Moyers back in 1977 on the South Bronx to give us a sense of what the South Bronx was like in the mid to late 70s, right? And so for every session, you have assignments like that. Then if we scroll to the very end, you can see we're going to cover some pretty, I hope you find, fascinating things, right? So that first session is intro material. The second session is also some intro material, pulp literature, spoken word recordings, funk and disco. Then we get into it with the early DJs, the first recordings, innovations of various DJs. The birth of the golden era with Run DMC and the beginning of the hip hop album, and so on. You can look at the syllabus. I won't go through all of it here. Finally, at the very end of the syllabus, you'll find written assignments. So the discussion of the descriptive sentences and so on. And if people feel like it would be useful, I guess I can make a separate video going through these, but you can read them at the back of the syllabus. Okay, I hope that was helpful. I'm really looking forward to this semester, and keep in mind that we're all kind of experts in this class. I mean, maybe some of you are taking the class not knowing much about hip hop at all, but you're guaranteed to know something about modern recording concerns and the music landscape as such, right? So even if you're coming from outside of a knowledge of hip hop, you're bringing a lot to the table, right? And I want you to make sure you do bring that to the table to our discussions. Our discussions really should be free form, as long as, obviously we all want to be respectful of each other's opinions. We want to be respectful of the various topics that we'll be discussing, some of which are very fraught, race and gender and issues of violence, and also political impacts of music and so on. All these can be sensitive issues, but as long as we're respectful of each other, I think we can have some really great conversations, and I look forward to them. I'll see you soon.